everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Mixing It Up. We've got a few more people just logging in right now, and we'll go ahead and get started. Gosh, and can't believe it's fall already, so happy fall, everybody. It's looking gorgeous out there. It looks like it's going to even be a nice weekend, so. All right, we got a couple more people logging in, just a little bit of good morning. So nice to see so many people chiming in with good morning. All right, so we have a very exciting show today. We are going to talk a little bit about some updates that are going on. Matter of fact, you guys are going to hear some brand new news. You'll be the first group to hear some exciting new news that we have. Brian, our Chief Technical Officer, is going to go over some updates. He's going to go over some things that you're going to need to know. And I think we've got just two more people logging in here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so it's very sunny today. Brian, are you there with us?
I am.
Hey, nice to see you this morning.
I'm excited.
Hey, I like that shirt.
That's it. Yeah, it beats the t-shirts. And you know what? The tux did not come back from the dry cleaner, so this is all I got.
Next time. Oh man, I'm loving all this sunshine. I'm loving this fall weather. So thanks so much for being on the show today. I know you have a lot to cover, a lot of exciting updates, so much going on in the industry, some changes that we recently saw. And so with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, I loved your video. We've been doing these staff videos that we've been putting out so you can better know our staff. And I have to tell you, I loved your video.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought it was better than the scuba shot, so.
Well, yeah, I am famous for my yellow pants. So I don't get that one. I don't get that one. And just for the record, I do not have yellow pants. But
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas then.
That's it, canary yellow. That's
yes.
My new favorite color.
Yeah, and some little pointy shoes for the bottom too. I think it'll be perfect. Yeah. So just a quick little bit of housekeeping. We're going to do a lot today. We're going to give away a prize today. We would love to have your questions. So feel free. There's a questions box. Now it's probably minimized over to the right side of your screen. But there you can enter in any questions you have for Brian. If they're easy questions, I'll take them. If they're hard questions, definitely address them to Brian. But feel free to ask your questions throughout the presentation. Dave DeReese, our CEO, and Debbie, our Education Director, they are going to be monitoring all the questions. And so we'll probably read your question out loud, and then Brian, we'll kind of put Brian on the hot seat today. So if there's anything you wanted to know about the MLS, now is your time to go ahead and ask those questions. If you do, we're also going to do a couple polls here in a couple of moments. All you need to do to answer the polls is simply click right onto your screen. There'll be a couple multiple choice, but we're going to have some fun today. So Brian, why don't you start us off? I know that we're going to talk a little bit about RESO. Before you, Brian, I have to admit, I didn't even know who RESO was. And so I'm looking forward to some of your updates and some of the exciting news. I always like to start off with the positive. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the great news that you have that no one else has heard. You guys are going to be the very first ones to hear it today.
Well, yeah, you know, for years, we've been providing MLS services to associations. So those include like the Saginaw Board, the Midland Board, Bay County Realtors, Southeastern Board, which was formerly Monroe and Downriver, East Central, that's the Flint region, Shiawassee. So now we're introducing a couple more. And so that's big news for us. One of the benefits of us bringing them on board our MLS platform is they're willing to share their data with us. And really our motivation and a lot of our work, especially over the last year, is pulling in more data from across the state. And that includes, you know, we last year we started with Northern Great Lakes. That's exclusive to us. So no other MLS has a sharing relationship, especially like this, than MiRealSource. And then we released Greater Lansing, and then finally the beginning of this year we brought on Mishrick. So that's 11 associations over on the west side of the state. So that brings us to 92% of the data in the state of Michigan. So with all this talk, especially we've got Michigan Realtors going on right now. This comes up every year. It's like, how does the agent get a statewide database? Well, we're very close to creating that. And really what sparks a lot of that is the fact that agents are trying to compete with Zillow, which has all the data, it seems like. We're trying to level the playing field here by providing our members all of the data in the state of Michigan.
I love that. And as an agent, it's so great that we now have all the information to do our job, literally coast to coast. We can now see so that the consumer isn't getting that information before we can as the agent. So I think my hat goes off to you. You've done just a phenomenal job of keeping us growing and getting 92% of the state.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but at the end of the day, I think it's definitely worth it. Have we had hiccups? Yeah, this has been one crazy year. So that's, and I'm just going to segue right into, you know, the greatest benefit here is to introduce all this data. But this year has definitely been unlike any other. We've had to postpone certain software updates, and that includes in the Great Lakes repository, and then scrambling to kind of catch up to make sure that we're where we're supposed to be on software releases, software patches, all of that. It's definitely created some issues. Most notably was either slow listings coming into the system from the Great Lakes repository or missing photos. And really what I want to address is we've had so much going on and we've had to cram it into such a very short period of time, because a lot of this, these updates, workers, all of that stuff, the people responsible for doing these updates were essentially on hiatus until we could kind of clear things, make sure work environments were appropriate under the conditions, under the pandemic conditions. So we've had to scramble to introduce these new things, and unfortunately, it's kind of disrupted the flow of data. But I am happy to say that we have fixed most, if not all of it at this point. Now, with everything that's happened, I like to independently keep an eye on it, make sure there's no issues when we introduce this new software. So I'm happy to say that we are providing more data than any other MLS in the state of Michigan. So that hard work, yes, we've had some hiccups, but I think we're coming into the clear right now, and we're getting ready to introduce some more data. So as a member of MiRealSource or one of our vendoring partners, one of the associations that we vendor, you're benefiting by this.
That's awesome. And so, so you said we're going to be seeing more data. So we have some new people coming on. Tell us a little bit about that.
I don't think it's official, but I don't think we're going to release any names yet. But they're in northern Michigan, and it's a pretty fair chunk. Some very key locations in central Lower Peninsula and further north. So those are areas that we'll be introducing. And one thing that I'd like to remark is a lot of times agents or brokers, they kind of look at it like, oh, that represents a certain county, and it really doesn't. One thing that we've done to represent how the data is exchanged is these dots. We like to call it the Lots of Dots tour last year when we were at Michigan Realtors.
Can you see that, Brian? Can you see the lots of dots on my screen right now?
No, I just see the welcome.
All right, so hold on, let me go back to sharing here. Bear with me 1 second. All right, and
while you're doing that, we got a couple of questions. One is, are the pictures corrected? I think he means by, are they coming over in a timely manner now?
Yeah, and there might be some little cleanup, and I would encourage everyone, just continue to report, just like you report bad data, missing photos. We believe that is corrected within the GLR. See, if it's not right in the GLR, it's not going to be right in Paragon. So that's something that we have corrected. So there might be a little bit of cleanup, maybe prior to anything like that, but for the most part, everything seems to be functioning just right. So, but again, report anything. There is another photo issue that I just want to make sure that this isn't confusing. Google released an update in Chrome, and it really did create some issues with photo rotation. I just say be patient on that. That fix is coming very shortly. So that might be the other photo issue that somebody is referring to.
Okay, but that rotation is a different issue. So
yeah, it's a different issue. But when somebody says photos, it's like, okay, I on the back of my head, I've got two issues that are that are floating around. I like to say that the data share photo issue is resolved.
Okay. We had another question or comment, I guess it was, as it relates to, because you mentioned Zillow and making sure that we have more information than they have. The way the comment is, it talks about how brokers have to allow, currently the way it works with Zillow, brokers have to give permission to allow their listings to go over to Zillow. So right now, the way that it is if you as a broker don't want your listings to go there, you could have them not go there. However, there was an announcement from Zillow last week that they're looking to become a broker, which means they'd become a shareholder, which means then they'd be eligible to get an IDX feed, and that will change that drastically. So now, if you don't want your listings to go to Zillow, once they're full-blown realtor, broker, member, shareholder, that means they get to have an IDX feed. The only way you can keep your listings off of Zillow will be that you'd have to opt out of IDX. But the problem with that is if you opt out of IDX, then you can't have an IDX feed, and therefore you can't have an IDX website. So that's going to be a major change. Now, they made the announcement last week. So far, there has been no movement on that as of yet. They have not applied to us to become a shareholder yet. So that'll be something that we'll stay tuned for, and we'll probably have a discussion of that at our shareholder meeting later this month. So sorry to get off topic, but somebody asked that question.
Yeah, well, I'm the one that said Zillow, so I guess that.
You see what happened? You mentioned it, and then it caused somebody to make a comment.
Good
Hey, look,
job,
I'm going to
Brian.
address. I'm going to address the elephant in the room, and this is what we hear. And it usually comes down to the speed that listings get to Zillow as opposed through data share. And this is something that we're going to be addressing in the coming months as well with the GLR. We're going to increase the frequency. So going into next year, I expect to see an improvement on the speed that we get updates through the GLR. So trust me, this when you whether you we call it venting or reporting or anything through support, I see that. So you're welcome to, if you see a concern, something that you've either got a question on, concern on, or you know what, even if you want to vent a little bit, you're welcome to just shoot it to support. I'll see that.
Okay, we have another question as it relates to HomeSnap and the identifying who is on what side of the transaction. And I know that there are issues with that because in the case where there's people on different MLSs that are all, put into HomeSnap, I know that it may not completely accurately show who was on what side of the transaction currently.
Yeah, the dual members have kind of created a little bit of an issue because by all rights, what you see in the other MLS system is two agents and vice versa. So they're capable of reporting those two legitimate agents between the two MLS systems. So you have an account with us, and then you have an account with another MLS. So that does create some of the confusion. However, I am talking to HomeSnap about correcting this because is unique and as we have with our data shares, we're not unique in that manner. This does occur across the country and other markets. So this is something that they're focused on fixing. And by that, by combining them into a single account under a certain email address, and that's your identifiers, your email. So if the email is the same and one MLS and same in another, what they're going to do is combine those into a single set of transactions or deals. So I'm hopeful that they'll get this fixed by no later than the first quarter of next year. All I could say at this point is that they are focused on getting it fixed.
That's great. Good questions. Keep them coming. I love that.
We're getting lots of good questions.
Cool. I love this. I could do this regular. Sometimes this is the best way to dictate the show is just answering questions.
Love that. Not to put you on the hot seat or anything. So because I didn't realize I was not showing my screen, you didn't get to see Brian's really cool yellow pants. So let me go back.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah.
The yellow pants, yes. Dave, did you have another question?
No, but I gotta make a quick phone call, so I'm gonna have to mute myself for a minute.
All right. So let's go ahead. Brian, you were mentioning the dots on the map, so I'm going to kind of jump into our slide presentation here. Explain what we're looking at here.
Okay, what we have here are the dots representing just MiRealSource. So just us, not the ones that we vendor or that share our platform, but just MiRealSource. And you can see we got a pretty good footprint.
And what do the dots represent, Brian? Can you give us a little?
Those are active and closed listings within the last year when these maps were made. And what you see there is MiRealSource combined with the Great Lakes Repository. So you could see, look at that. Again, that footprint really covers our market and southeastern Michigan. So without a doubt, we pretty much got 100% of the data in southeastern Michigan. Next slide.
Okay.
And as we added our exclusive data share with Northern Great Lakes, you could see we're starting to fill in Northern Michigan. And one thing I want to point out about this Northern Great Lakes, this was something new. You know, they weren't willing to share any other way. So I was able to, or at least with our partner vendor, to come up with a way that we could share data, but in a solution that was agreeable by both parties. So what this does is this allows you your own account, not a shared account. Some of these data shares that use a password exchange, you're logging into the same account. You're sharing the account. You're putting in clients where somebody else can see your clients, if you would even do that.
No.
So in this case, it's entirely your account. You have a client that might be interested in properties up in Traverse City, up in Central Michigan, which is Mount Pleasant or Northeastern. You can safely set them up and set up auto notifications, and they'll get notified, and that's exclusively your account in the Northern Great Lakes. So it's not a shared account.
And Brian, can you tell everybody what this, because I kept thinking there was a little hole up here on top of the thumb, but can you tell everybody what goes on here with this RMLS and why we don't have them? Can you kind of explain that?
Well, most of that area is really just farmland, but there is an MLS up there, and it's a non-realtor MLS called RMLS. And one thing we discovered is we thought, you know what, is this really a missing piece of the puzzle? But what we realized is most, if not all of their members are members of us. So those same listings that were entered into RMLS were actually entered into MiRealSource. So for the most part, it's a bunch of farmland that's up there. But there is an MLS that's up there, a non-realtor MLS. Okay, so Greater Lansing. We just introduced Greater Lansing last year. And just like I was saying before, nobody really represents a single county. You could see that footprint really goes out and up north and out west. And you could see that those dots, those red dots, actually travel into Oakland, Macomb, Wayne, and even St. Clair counties that you wouldn't normally have that you do have today. And again, I want to point that out with the green dots. Those are deals that someone up there has listed down here, and it might only be available in Northern Great Lakes, or it might only be available through these data shares. So it's important to note that these footprints extend out throughout the state. And with this inventory, everyone is going to welcome a listing. I don't care who you are, you're not going to turn away a listing. You're not going to turn away a listing.
Every listing definitely counts in this market, that's for sure.
Yeah, and as a buyer's agent, if everyone is going to take a listing from anywhere, it's even more important to have all of the listings, especially with this inventory. So it makes more sense today than it has ever before.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
So
Bay County, we introduced last year, and they are one of our vendor MLSs, and that's another exclusive data share that we're providing. So it's, again, you could see those dots spread out, especially if you're doing work in the northern counties, you know, St. Clair, or I'm sorry, you know, Tuscola, Saginaw, Midland Bay. That's data that's available to you today. And then finally, Mishrick. You could see that huge footprint out west. I mean, again, data that we didn't have before, and that is, again, an exclusive to MiRealSource. So we've got a lot of data, and we've got more to gather in northern Michigan. And just like I was saying before, we're going to be introducing 2 more. So as you can see, there's some more land that we're going to be gathering in northern Michigan, and we'll be introducing those probably by the end of the year officially.
That's exciting. So right now, thanks to Brian and all his hard work, we, out of the 32,500 realtors that there are currently in Michigan, now we have over 30,000 in the data share. So that is really impressive. Really, as agents, we now can do our job. We can literally see listings coast to coast, and we can get the information before our buyers are seeing it on places like Zillow and other sites. So I think you've done an amazing job, and it certainly hasn't been easy. Brian is very modest, but building things like for the Northern Great Lakes Realtors, that was something that he had to build in a completely different way. I would never want your job, Brian. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I love what I do, but it does come with its headaches and its challenges. But it's the challenges that probably keep me coming back. That's definitely it. Now that I think about it, it's it's all about the working the problems, solving these problems, and just a challenge. So it keeps me going.
It's amazing, I'll tell you. And then, Brian, you want to tell them a little bit about, I thought when you ran these numbers, I was absolutely fascinated by how much, people say, does data sharing work? Really, what does it mean to me? But when you ran these numbers as far as production and dollars, break this slide down for them, because I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, and this is just, these are residential transactions, as you can see, facilitated by data sharing. And what I did is I took all the closed deals in the system, and where it was listed by one and sold by another is what you have here. And just to be clear, this actually is just Great Lakes repository data. So when I pulled this, it was very early for Lansing and Northern Great Lakes, and MiRealSource wasn't even there. So I expect that 2020, as crazy as 2020 has been, that these transaction numbers are actually going to go up. So I'm excited to see where those are at.
So, Brian, when you say listed by one and sold by another, you mean by one MLS, but sold by
another,
somebody
yes,
in a different MLS.
Yep. Which is actually proof of a data share. So in other words, that would be data that would not normally be available without a data share.
Right. So
if you can see that bottom number, over $7 billion of production was done. So when you're thinking about it, think of money in your pocket that you wouldn't have had if you couldn't have seen that listing. And as Brian mentioned, in this low inventory market, every listing counts. I mean, we need to be able to see every single one. And so
that would be probably equivalent to well over 200 million in commission dollars.
That's amazing.
I have a great question.
Okay.
Is the map available as an add-in so you can upload a PDF to Cloud CMA?
Yes, we can get that for you. And yes, you can put that right in your, where you can upload pages to the beginning of your cloud. And you can even save it as a template. So it's always in there. So you can actually show your sellers. And I do use this when I'm going on a listing appointment. I want them to see that we're not just, exposing your house, your listing to our small area. We're, making sure that it is getting seen coast to coast now. And so, our goal has always been to have 100% of the state in our data share so that we can see everything. And we're very close to that at 92%. And as Brian mentioned, we just brought on 2 more. So we're getting very, very close to reaching that 100% mark. So we have all of the data right in our home MLS database.
Yep. And I just further into that, that's great marketing material. Part of what you want when you put a listing in a system, you want to be able to tell your client it's and we all know the MLS is really where listings sell. We know the consumer thinks it might be Zillow, but where you get your serious buyers is only in the MLS. And to be able to provide and tell your client that when you list in MiRealSource, that you're able to get more agents or more realtors in front of that listing than any other MLS in the state of Michigan. That's huge. That is a huge marketing pitch.
More realtor eyeballs.
Correct. So I could tell, if I list in MiRealSource, I could say, hey, I'm able to provide your listing in front of more realtors than any other MLS in the state of Michigan. That's a huge selling point.
Absolutely.
Colleen, where would they go to get these maps with the dots on them?
What I can do is I'll actually set it up so for their emails out after the show, it'll include the PDF of that map with all of the dots on it. Then all you have to do is go into your Cloud CMA account. You're going to go up to your little avatar at the top. You're going to click on it. You'll see your photo there generally where your avatar is at the top right-hand corner, right inside of your dashboard in Cloud. Just click on Custom Pages. It'll allow you to go ahead and upload it. You can give it a name. You can even change the name if you'd like. And then, as I mentioned, just add it into your CMA, and that way it will be there. And again, you can even create these great custom templates now within Cloud. So that's come a long way too. All right, and then Brian, it's been an extremely, I'm going to go back a couple slides here. It's been an extremely challenging year, as you mentioned. A lot of the updates were held due to the pandemic. Tell everybody what this is. Every Monday, you do one of these for us at the MLS, and we've actually posted it out so people can see it. But tell us what this is so that they can get better acquainted with it.
Okay, this is what I call the pandemic curve. And as you could see, we're all kind of familiar with what happened back in March, how the industry kind of almost came to a complete halt. But what you see here is a representation in blue is for this year, and orange is for last year. And the top graph represents new listings. And you can see back in March until May, we have a dip there. And that's what I like to call the pandemic curve right there. And what's most important about this whole graph, or these graphs, is the recovery. How did we recover from that? All that lost inventory. And you could see we've kept it kind of kept in pace with what we did last year. But what's going to be interesting is going forward, do we actually recapture any of that inventory? Now, I've grabbed some other numbers, and really what it comes down to, you can have new listings, but what really makes dollars and cents is down at the bottom, or further down, the pendings, and then finally the closed listings, because that's really what means dollars and cents for the agents. The brokers and agents are closed deals. And you can see those numbers are staying just above what we did last year. So when I really look at the numbers, I'm seeing a volume that is catching up to where we were last year. So while the inventory might not be up there, one thing that we have noticed is it hasn't stopped people from buying. And with this inventory shortage, it's actually increased the value, or the median value, of properties. So I think we've all seen this happen, is the median price increases, which results in the volume increase. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of the year if we've matched what we did last year. And I'm not saying last year was anything great either. I think we all knew last year we had an inventory shortage, and this is, even worse. But that increase in median sales is, I think, is making up some volume difference.
So Brian, these graphs that you're showing right now are different from the graphs that they can get in market stats, because these are weekly, not monthly. The ones in market stats are monthly.
Yep. And we wanted something a little more granular, so I just went ahead and just kind of pulled this out just to see really. I think what we were looking for is let's watch the state of the industry, and a little more granular timeline rather than waiting until the end of the month or the beginning of next month to see how we performed last month. Let's see what's going on. And I find these reassuring. I think it's interesting to see how resilient the industry really is. I think there's been people that were hesitant to sell, but I think some of those are coming around. But like I said, at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is that last graph. How many closings do we really have? And really, what is the volume? How many, what are the commissions? What are you making? And I think that's reassuring to see that we have even an uptick over what, and you could see since, what is that? Like July, or the end of June, that we've stayed above what we were closing last year.
It's very interesting to watch these numbers. You see a lot of the peaks in the same, especially in the close. You can see the peak, for last year versus the peak. So I've been fascinated. And like I said, Brian does this every Monday. He posts them on the MiRealSource site. So they go up every week. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think it's really fascinating. You're right. It is encouraging. And watching these numbers climb, and so this is something that's available to you weekly. This is another one of those great things, for sellers who may be a little bit nervous about market conditions. This is another great thing to put in the beginning of your CMA to show them what's going on, and things are still closing. And now selling your home right now is netting you more than it has in years, and showing them why. So.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely an easy argument. And you can go right into market stats and pull up what that market is doing. And I would encourage everyone to take advantage of this, because you could dial in a specific neighborhood in market stats and show your client that, hey, look, now really is the time to sell. You could get more for your home than you did last year.
Absolutely. And you're right, showing him. I'm an old Floyd Wickman fan, and he always said, don't ever tell a seller anything, show him everything. And so now you have all the tools to do that, between the pandemic curve, which is done weekly. As Brian said, you have great stats and drilled right down to the city. If you're going on a listing appointment in Sterling Heights, it's 2 clicks to create a great custom page that you can, and I do that for every listing presentation. I put the actual fast stats report right in the beginning of my CMA to show them, hey, look, you can get this much more. On average, this is what you're going to be looking at getting more for selling right now. So, I mean, it's powerful when you can show them that.
Yeah, actually, and it's an easy argument to get somebody to sell. It really is.
It is.
So I would encourage, now is the time to really flaunt the statistics. As brokers and agents, they're in your favor. They're definitely in your favor.
Speaking of statistics, we are going to be having a new thing that's going to be coming out, a new thing on our YouTube channel, MiRealSource Media, that's actually going to break down the stats for you. So it's going to show you by county. It's going to tell you what it means. It's basically an analysis that you're going to be able to go in and see exactly what's going on in the market at that current moment. And it's going to be broken down. And I actually, we ran through it for the first time, and I was astounded. Kyle, who happens to be Brian's son, just did an amazing job of breaking down the stats. So more going to be coming on that. You're going to be seeing that coming out at the end of the month. But I love the numbers. I love the stats. And he did a phenomenal job of pointing things out I wasn't even aware of. So look forward to that. We'll have a lot more coming to you. That'll be brand new. You'll see that at the end of the month.
Yep. Be very cool.
All right, so tell us about, now I'm going to be honest, before I came on board with MiRealSource, I didn't even know what this is. I had no idea how it worked, where it came from, what it meant. Tell us a little bit about RESO.
Okay, what RESO is an acronym for Real Estate Standards Organization, and it's an organization that was started by NAR, and it's still funded by NAR. And now what comes out of RESO, these standards are mandated by NAR. So what it does, and really the whole point, and the whole point to NAR, or I'm sorry, RESO, is to create these real estate standards. And the point of creating these standards is what we call a field in one market the same as what we call it in another. And what this does is it allows industries or software or companies to just kind of plug and play into the real estate industry. And what that means for brokers and agents is it means that it opens the menu of software that I can go out and shop for. Because now when the software vendor sees that, oh, this API, which is application program interface, which in other words is how do I connect to this data or this software, is the same from one market to another, it opens up the window to introduce this to all different industries. So now you can start shopping for software that might not have existed in this market or even existed in real estate, and look at providing that. So that's really a lot of what it does, is it creates this plug and play, easy to introduce, easy to connect to real estate data. And part of what as I mentioned, NAR creates these mandates based on what RESO is doing. So that requires us to be RESO certified, as well as for the ones that we vendor. So we take care of that. We make sure that we comply, so we're able to provide this data in this standardized format, which is called the data dictionary, by the way. And that's updated every year. We come out with a new version. We introduce new fields, maybe adjust, and then we adjust to that as well. And that's introduced into the documentation so that a software vendor can go there and see and have everything that they need to know to plug their software into our real estate data. So, and that compliance is something, like I said, we keep up with every year. We have to get certified, but it's just part of the job. It makes it easier for us to, like I said, introduce new software. And this is also, we meet twice a year and throughout the year on work groups. So I attend some of the work groups, such as the unique property identifier, which is something that we use to identify duplicates. It's not perfect today, but I'm hoping at some point when everyone complies to this, that we know what is a duplicate and what is not. That's part of it. The other part of it is identifying agents, identifying listings, as well as identifying listing fields. So all of this work requires a cooperation across the country. So I'd like to say I actively attend these meetings and these events. There's one coming up at the end of the year, and it's going to be, no surprise, it's going to be a virtual. We actually had one in April, and we had to do a virtual gathering there. But the good news is when you get a lot of technical people together, it's very easy to do a virtual meeting. So it still remains a very productive meeting. But I'll be honest with you, there's still no replacement for in-person meetings. I think we all agree on that. So hopefully at some point we resume these in-person meetings. But I like to say that this pandemic really hasn't kept down RESO at all. We're able to meet on the same regular basis and communicate in the same way. So if there's any questions on RESO, again, you can always hit me. You can hit me here. You can hit me through support.
Awesome. We did have one good question. So Brian, if they see a duplicate or if they see a listing that something is wrong, it's a 2-story and it's listed a 1-story, how do they report that? Is there an easy way to report that?
Oh, absolutely. You use that corrections button. I like to harp on this, but again, any doubts, anything like that, hit right above that listing. There's a red button that says corrections. Hit it. You're reporting it anonymously. The listing agent doesn't hear anything about it. So just report away. You know, we do our best to ensure data integrity, but you know, we get listings coming in from data shares, from other MLSs. So if something is incorrect or something seems to be, you know, missing, report away. You're not doing any harm. I would encourage you to report. If it's a duplicate, report it. They do get by. Like I said, the duplication isn't perfect, but the one thing I don't want to do is identify a false positive and then you don't see the listing at all. So I would rather you see 2 and see none at all. So,
Yes.
and if you report it, we can remove it and then it won't skew any statistics or anything like that.
Great. And as Brian mentioned, it's just this red button. I've pulled it up on the screen here. If you note if something's wrong, again, it's anonymous, so they're not going to call you and be angry with you, but just go ahead and hit that corrections button, because what it does is it gathers all the information, sends it over to Brian and support, and then they can go ahead and review it. So
yep.
don't.
Yeah, it'll go to the appropriate department. It'll be reported to the source MLS. So if it's let's say it's a real comp listing or one of the data shares, you report it, it goes to the appropriate channels. So it's reported. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing that I want to mention too, and I just said, you know, false positives or if the listings aren't appearing, is, you know, agents do have these skills, and sometimes these skills can be a little nefarious. So by that, I mean, maybe listing in one MLS, withdrawing, and then listing in another MLS. That seriously confuses the 2 MLS systems, and that goes both ways. So if you listed a one and you listed another, you withdraw and you don't notify the MLSs, then what happens is you have a missing listing. That's what happens there. So when you play that kind of, I don't want to use the word game. I understand, you know, your fiduciary duty is to your client. You're going to do whatever you have to service your client, but in some ways that becomes a disservice because now it's not seen because it's been identified as a duplicate, and now you hide it, or you hide the active one and you're relisting in the other. So that explains sometimes when we have missing listings, when agents do that. I think for the most part, agents have stopped doing that, but you know, I can't say for certain. Sometimes it creeps up because for some odd reason, you know, the listing might not be selling, so the agent's trying something different by a relist or whatever, and it confuses the data share system. And like I said, this occurs on both sides. It can occur over there. We have to report to the data shares that, hey, look, you're hiding this listing, you need to expose it. So it just makes it difficult, but I think that's part of the challenge of the job.
Well, the other thing is when you mentioned relists, when they you know, withdraw it and put it back on and withdraw it and put it back on and withdraw it and put it back on, sometimes within minutes, it totally confuses all the systems and the filters that have been built in to all the MLSs that data share, which can cause it to be hidden or not show up, which is not good for the seller. But the other thing is all of the IDX sites, all of the syndication sites, everybody nowadays does the same thing that the MLS does, is they track all of this in what they call listing history. So no matter where you are on an IDX site or on a syndication site or in the MLS, it's not hidden. The fact that you relisted it 17 times is going to be viewed by the public. So I don't think that there's any advantage like there may have been back in the olden days to that kind of behavior. So I would
Yeah, everyone, including the consumer, can see the history. They could see it went on the market, off the market, on the market, on the market, off the market. So the consumer is educated too. So if they look down, if they're on one of the syndication sites, Realtor.com, Zillow, they see that history.
And yeah, there really is no point in putting it in more than one MLS. That I don't think is helpful anymore either. Somebody mentioned that we should mention our shareholder meeting. We do have a shareholder meeting later this month. Emails have been sent out by Tracy for that. Please turn in your proxies. That way, if something comes up and you're abducted by aliens that day, we can still, count you towards our requirements for a quorum. So please do that, as soon as you can.
Another question that came up, and I think we've talked about this a couple of times, but Brian mentioned that the pandemic curve he does is weekly. Market stats is monthly, but if you are looking to put that information in your CMA, remember you're just going to go to resources. You will find under social media the market stats program. And basically it's this easy. Remember, you're just clicking on where you want the report. You could do all of the MLS, you could do a particular county, or if you're looking for just a particular city, as you can see here, if I click on Sterling Heights, it's literally 2 clicks. It tells me right now in Sterling Heights, our inventory is down almost 56%. So you see inventory of home sales, 55.6% down from last year. Yikes. But look what it did to our average sales price. Our average sales price last year, $229. This year, $244 in the city. So it literally is just 2 clicks. Remember, save this, add it to your CMAs. This will wow your sellers. It will also give them some confidence that right now really is the time to list their home to make more money. All right. All right, so is there any other questions? Dave, Debbie, do we have any other questions while Brian's on the hot seat?
I don't see any.
Okay, cool. Don't you got off easy, boy.
Well, we didn't even go into, we're going to be introducing some new updates, and usually we kind of initially do this stuff at the shareholder meeting, but if you are a Realist user, you may have noticed that we have introduced the entire state. So you have the entire state of Michigan in Realist. That's important to note. And it only made sense. We're looking at the entire state of Michigan as far as listing data. So it pairs well with having all of the public records. And that's in addition to BSNA. That's available to you as well. So it bears repeating that you have this available to you today. For public records. BSNA is really the official site. Anything other than that is really a replication, but we find a lot of value in Realist, and I'm happy to introduce the entire state.
Which one really nice thing about that is, again, when you're doing your autofill, so if you're trying to autofill a listing, you can autofill it, as Brian mentioned, from 83 counties. And in Instanet, when you are writing a transaction, again, now you can pull from anywhere because agents aren't just working in a small area anymore. So now when you're in Instanet and you want to quickly pull in all of the property information, the lot size, the taxes, all that information can be now pulled in from all 83 counties. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I believe an agent is going to take a listing anywhere. Yeah, give me a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 property on the west side of the state. I listed it in MiRealSource, and it makes it into the MISRIC system. That's a nice commission.
Absolutely. And as a member benefit, one of the things that is that Brian has done is he's tied BSNA in. And for MiRealSource members, remember, you get all of Macomb County for BSNA that's integrated at no cost, and the gross points. So that's huge. That's a nice, I know it's just $2 here and $2 there for those records, but at the end of the year, all those $2 really add up for me. So that is a really nice member benefit that we get.
Yeah, and that's something we're looking at expanding, but stay tuned. We'll have more new products and enhancements to release by the year's end.
Yeah, I'm excited about some of the new things coming too. So, all right, so let's do a giveaway. So I decided, because it's a beautiful fall day and I'm dying to get out to the cider mill, the prize for today, I don't know if you can see that. Brian, can you see that, since I'm switching around a little bit? So
yeah,
the prize,
it looks delicious.
I know, it's making my hips bigger as I sit here just looking at that, but I thought we'd do some carameled apples and a little fall giveaway. So the question for today is, Dave DeReese, our CEO, has started a podcast. Actually, he's done quite a few episodes. I've learned so much. You can get them through your Apple Podcasts, or you can go right to the site directly. But I am looking for the first person to go into the questions box, which again will be minimized at the right side of your screen in your GoToWebinar panel. I am looking for the name of that podcast. So I'm looking for the name of the podcast that Dave DeReese, our CEO, started. And if you just simply type that in the questions box, the first one. All right, Jill, congratulations. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on the screen. You won those delicious carameled apples. Brian and I will be right over to help share in those. But it's MiRealSource, and you can find that at yourrealsource.info. This is also where we place that great pandemic curve that Brian does. So you can see there's a bunch of different interviews. You can hear about all different topics. And what I love is they're short, they're sweet. You can sort of listen to them in your car and just find out what you need to know about real estate. He's done a great job with them. It's also, again, you'll see the pandemic curve graphs right up here. These are updated weekly so that you can go in, just click on them. You can see exactly, here's this week's. And you can even print these off and add them to your CMA. So congratulations, Jill. Great job. Thank you again for joining us. It's so nice to see the same names popping in again and again, week after week. As I mentioned, we will also be having some new information that you'll be able to find on our YouTube channel at MiRealSource Media. That's going to be updating you on what's going on with the numbers. Kyle Alford, who actually is Brian's son, has done a great job putting that together, giving a lot of great info. So a lot of information coming there too. So any last questions, Dave? Any last questions, Debbie?
No, I don't see any.
All right.
There was one a little bit ago said that, and it goes back to the data sharing. So with data sharing, what's the point of putting it in multiple MLSs? And I think Brian alluded to that. And if you want to touch on that just a little bit more for us.
Well, and that's the whole point of data sharing, is that you don't have to be a member of multiple MLSs. You get everything in one MLS system. What I like to say is, as a member of MiRealSource, all you need is one login and password to get access to all this data, 92% of the data in the state of Michigan, as well as all of the integrated products. So I like to make it easy. Plus, you have all the data. Let's make it easy on yourself. List it once, and
yeah, I would go even further. I'll go even further and say you should not list it more than once, because here's what's happening. All of the MLSs that are involved in this these data shares then have to do extra work to deduplicate the duplicates, and that extra work is there's no reason for it. So you're not going to normally have your listing that you put into 2 or 3 different MLSs show up 2 or 3 times. So you're doing extra work for nothing. You're creating extra work for the MLSs to have to deduplicate the duplicate listings. So yes, I would go so far as to say, no, don't do it.
That's terrific. And Debbie was kind enough to add the dots map, I believe, to the handout section. I will also have it in the follow-up email that you receive after today's show. So use those, use them in your listing presentations. And as Brian said, listings are the name of the game right there, right now. So please go out and list like crazy, so we have lots of great things and lots of great properties to sell. All right, well, with that, Brian, thank you so much for all the great information. I'm always amazed by you. Again, I would never want your job because I think it's the hardest job on the planet, but I appreciate all the integration that you build for us, and the amazing ways that you're bringing, pretty much almost 100% of the state now to us, so
We're
that
close.
we can have all the info. Pretty close, pretty close. And Dave
Well,
and
thanks
Debbie,
for
thank
having
you
me.
again. Go ahead, what'd you say?
I said thanks for having me.
It was wonderful. Thank you, Dave and Debbie, for doing the questions. Thank you all for attending, and we will see you on the first Thursday of November. So have a great day, enjoy your fall, and we'll see you soon.